Alien girl notices human reacting to her scent, but human smells a fragrance meant for royalty. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. Ethan Cole steadied himself against the humming console as the air filtration lights flickered from soft blue to a sharp warning red. He'd spent enough late shifts in the xenobiology lab to know the system wasn't supposed to hiss like that, or release a faint swirl of silver mist drifting out of the sealed chamber. The recycled air carried a scent he couldn't quite place. Warm, electric, almost metallic at first, then softening into something deeper, something that slid under his skin before he could think to step back. By the time the haze thinned, his pulse had already kicked up in his throat, each heartbeat loud in the narrow room. He blinked hard, trying to reset his senses the way training manuals suggested, but the scent clung to the cool lab air the way heat clings to desert stone after sundown. Not great, he muttered, rubbing the back of his neck as a shiver ran up his spine. The sensor panel scrolled warnings he'd never seen in person. Fragrance Class R, Royal Tier. He didn't know much about alien perfume classifications, but he knew Royal usually meant don't breathe this. The door slid open before he could isolate the chamber. Lasara stepped through with the calm precision of someone who understood the room better than the walls did. Her violet skin caught the overhead light in shifting silver, as if the glow lived beneath the surface instead of on it. She moved with a quiet grace that made even the soft click of her boots sound deliberate. But the moment her pupils tightened, he knew she'd noticed something was off. You inhaled it, she said, her voice low, almost a whisper meant not to disturb the air around them. Ethan tried to laugh it off. It's just a scent leak. System glitched. I'll file the report. But she didn't look amused. She studied him the way a physician studies vital signs, focused, intent, listening to things unseen. Humans should not react to my. She stopped herself, as if the rest of the sentence had weight she wasn't ready to place between them. He wiped a faint sheen of sweat from his brow. It's strong, yeah? Feels like my sinuses are trying to reboot. What is it? Some kind of luxury fragrance. Lab label says Royal Tier. Didn't realize the department stocked high-end perfume. The way she inhaled softly at his words made him realize he'd said something wrong. Very wrong. Her expression shifted, surprise first, then something like disbelief, maybe even caution. You recognize the class of the scent, she said quietly. Most humans cannot. Ethan shrugged, trying to keep the room from tilting. It was written on the console. Big, glowing letters. Hard to miss. For a moment, she just looked at him. Really looked, as if searching for something in his face the same way he searched for loose connections in circuitry. The faint glow along her cheekbones pulsed once, like a heartbeat he could see. That scent is not common, she said finally. And it is not meant for unprepared environments. Or unprepared humans, he guessed, feeling the echo of the fragrance settle warm in his chest before fading like a memory. He straightened, forcing his breathing slow and steady the way emergency drills taught. I'll reset the filtration system. Shouldn't take long. Just need the override code. Another flicker crossed her expression, not fear, but the kind of hesitation someone shows when they're deciding how much truth to reveal. Ethan Cole, she said softly, that scent is meant for royalty, and no human should be able to stand in it without losing their balance. He exhaled carefully. Well, he said with a thin, tired smile, guess I've always been bad at following rules. The light above them steadied, casting the room in a gentle amber glow. And the scent, faint now, still lingered, just enough to remind him this was no ordinary leak, and Lasara was no ordinary colleague. Ethan forced his focus back to the control panel, though the faint echo of the scent still hovered at the edge of his senses like a memory that refused to settle. The filtration unit hummed unevenly, every flicker in the lights sending a soft pulse. Across the reflective floor, he steadied his breathing, telling himself it was just a system malfunction and nothing more. But the way Lasara stood a few feet away, hands clasped as if she were holding something delicate and invisible, made the room feel smaller than it actually was. Her silver markings shifted subtly with every breath she took, as though her skin absorbed the warm ambient light and gave it back in a softer glow. Ethan cleared his throat, hoping the sound might ground him. The override interface is jammed again. It has been glitching for weeks. He tapped the side of the console, a gentle tap, not enough to damage anything, just enough to coax the screen awake. She stepped closer, careful and deliberate, as if she wanted to avoid disturbing the air between them. The system does not usually respond well to human touch during a fragrance leak, she said. Ethan allowed himself a faint smile. I have noticed. The scent was lighter now, but it still carried a warmth that curled around the room like a quiet presence. He adjusted the settings, and when the panel finally beeped in confirmation, he exhaled in relief. There. The filtration should flush the air in a few minutes. She nodded slowly, studying him as though he were part of the anomaly. You are steady now? Most humans would experience dizziness for much longer. Ethan shrugged, though his pulse still beat a bit too fast. Maybe I am just stubborn. Her gaze softened, the edges of her irises catching the amber light. It is not stubbornness, she said quietly. It is something else. Ethan paused, fingers hovering over the last reset command. Like what? She hesitated, and for a moment he thought she would not reply. Then she stepped closer, close enough that the cool scent of the sterilized air mixed with the faint trace of her natural fragrance. Where I come from, she said softly. That reaction you had is not a common one. It only occurs when someone's physiology is compatible with a certain fragrance tier. Ethan blinked. Compatible? With royalty-level perfume. She did not smile, but something like amusement flickered across her features. It is not perfume, she corrected gently. It is part of our biology. A tiered system. Certain scents are meant for certain roles. Certain bonds. He swallowed instinctively, the weight of her words settling in. His chest. And what happened to me means. It means the scent did not overwhelm you, she said. It means it recognized you. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable, just heavy with meaning neither of them had asked for. The filtration vents finally activated, releasing a soft current of cool air that brushed past them, clearing the last traces of the lingering fragrance. Ethan stepped back, giving himself space he suddenly realized he needed. So this scent of yours, he said, trying to keep his voice steady. What is it supposed to do? Lysara lowered her eyes, the silver glow along her skin dimming in a quiet, thoughtful way. It is meant to signal trust, she said. It is meant to indicate that someone is safe to be near. But only a very limited number of individuals can withstand it without discomfort. Ethan let the statement settle before answering. And you think I am one of those individuals? She lifted her gaze again, and something unspoken moved between them, something fragile but undeniable. I do not think, she replied. I know. The console beeped once more, signaling that the room had stabilized. Ethan straightened, forcing himself back to routine. Well, he said with a slow exhale. Guess the lab picked an interesting night for surprises. She watched him a moment longer, her expression unreadable but warm in a way he had not expected. This was not the lab, she said softly. This was the scent, and the way it chose you. Her words stayed with him even as the light steadied and the sharp hum of the machines returned to normal, leaving only the faint echo of something he could not name lingering in the quiet space between them. Ethan stayed near the console for a moment longer, letting the steady rhythm of the ventilation fans pull his thoughts back into something resembling order. The lab felt normal again, the clean filtered air cool against his face, but the quiet between him and Lysara carried an entirely new weight. He knew he should leave, file the report, pretend this was a routine malfunction, yet something in her expression told him the night was not finished with either of them. Lysara walked slowly toward the glass chamber where the silver mist had escaped, her fingers hovering just above the reinforced surface. Even without touching it, the sensors responded to her presence, illuminating faint lines of soft blue light under her palm. This chamber was not supposed to activate on its own, she murmured. The fragrance inside requires a coded sequence. It cannot be released by accident. Ethan rubbed his temples, still fighting the subtle warmth lingering deep under his ribs. Then what triggered it? She turned her eyes toward him, the silver flecks brightening the way starlight brightens when clouds shift. Something responded to my proximity. Something responded to yours. Ethan exhaled carefully. You mean it opened for us? Not opened, she said softly. Revealed. Her tone held no accusation, only a quiet wonder, but it still made him feel as if he were standing too close to a truth he had not earned. He checked the system logs again, hoping for a simple explanation, but the data thread was still a mess of corrupted timestamps and locked files. I will run diagnostics on the logs tomorrow, he said. Maybe the filtration malfunction scrambled the safety matrix. She shook her head. Safety matrices do not scramble by themselves. He looked at her, noticing how her posture had changed. She stood straighter now, more composed, as if she had slipped into a role she did not usually show. Lysara, he asked carefully, is there something I am not supposed to know? Her breath slowed, the glow under her skin dimming to a quiet pulse. There are many things you are not supposed to know, she said. But not because you are human. Because they are meant for those who can perceive the sense without fear. Ethan gave a small half-smile, trying to disarm the tension. I felt a lot of things, but fear was not exactly one of them. That made her pause. She stepped closer, not enough to invade his space, but enough that he could feel the temperature shift as her presence reached him. That is what concerns me, she said. He raised an eyebrow. Concerns you how? She seemed to consider her words, as if each one had weight. You felt the scent completely, and yet you remained yourself. That reaction is not common, even among my own people. Ethan blinked, surprised despite everything he had already heard. Are you saying this scent does something to your people too? It can, she admitted. At certain strengths, it can shift perception. It can evoke trust, calm, or resonance. It is not dangerous, but it is intimate. Ethan felt his shoulders tighten, not from discomfort, but from the awareness that her words held layers he did not know how to interpret. And my reaction means I responded to something rare. She nodded once. Rare, and very specific. The room seemed to grow quieter around them, the hum of equipment fading into the background. She lowered her voice, the gentleness in it drawing him in without intention. Ethan Cole, there are beings in my culture who are allowed to inhale that scent directly. They are chosen, trusted, connected. He swallowed, feeling the weight of her gaze settle on him like a warm ribbon across his shoulders. And you think I fit that category? She held his eyes for a long moment, long enough that he felt the pulse of something unspoken moving between them. I think, she said finally, the scent believes you do. That sentence stayed with him, soft and steady. Even as the last of the silver mist vanished behind the chamber walls and the lab lights settled into their calm evening glow, leaving him with the unmistakable feeling that his life on this station had just shifted in a way no manual could prepare him for. Ethan powered down the last console, letting the soft chime fade into the steady hum of the station settling into its nighttime cycle. Beyond the lab's sealed windows, the starfield drifted past slowly, streaks of pale light stretching into a calm river against the black. It should have felt like any other late shift, but the air between him and Lysara carried the quiet weight of something unspoken, something neither of them had asked for yet could no longer ignore. Lysara stood near the auxiliary workstation, her fingers trailing above the holographic display without touching it, adjusting spectral readings with small, precise motions. The glow from the screen lit the edges of her features in soft blues and purples, giving her an almost otherworldly gentleness that contrasted with the measured calm in her posture. You should rest, she said, not looking away from the display. Your reaction earlier may cause delayed fatigue. Ethan gave a small laugh. I think I am past the fatigue window. I feel fine. She lifted her gaze to him, studying his face the way someone studies a warning light that refuses to turn off. You say? That, she replied, yet your pupils are still slightly dilated. Not from danger, from resonance. Ethan leaned against the console, letting the cool metal ground him. Resonance, he repeated. You make it sound like I tuned myself like an instrument. Her expression softened. In a way you did. The lights overhead dimmed to evening mode, casting the lab in warm amber that softened the sharp edges of steel and glass. The shift in lighting made the luminescent markings along her arms brighten slightly, responding to the reduced intensity. Ethan watched as the glow rippled faintly before settling again. Does that happen on purpose? He asked, nodding toward the markings. She glanced down at them, almost self-conscious. Only when my focus is divided. It is a biological response. To what? She hesitated, and for a heartbeat the quiet between them became something fragile. To presence, she said simply. Ethan exhaled slowly, unsure what to say, unsure what he was allowed to say. Everything about the moment felt delicate, like walking on thin ice that somehow held steady beneath him. Why tell me any of this? He asked finally. I am just a systems engineer who happened to stand in the wrong place at the wrong time. Her eyes warmed, not in brightness, but in expression, as though she was seeing something beyond the surface. You were not in the wrong place, she said. The fragrance reacted because it sensed something compatible. That is not an error. That is intention. Ethan shook his head lightly. I did not think sense had intentions. Not in the way you mean, she replied. It is instinctual, not conscious. But it does recognize what aligns with it. She stepped closer, careful but not hesitant, leaving no more than a few feet of space between them. The shift in distance carried no tension, just significance. There is another reason I am telling you this, she continued. The chamber that released the fragrance will require recalibration tomorrow. To complete it, I will need someone whose physiology does not trigger the defensive filters. Ethan blinked. You are saying it will only open for me again? Yes, she said, or for someone of royal descent. The words hung in the warm air for several seconds before their meaning settled fully. And since I am obviously not that, Ethan said quietly, that leaves me. She nodded. If you are willing. He let out a long breath, the kind that pulls tension from the shoulders. You know I will help. That is not even a question. Her glow pulsed faintly once more, softer this time, like a quiet acknowledgement. I knew you would say that, she murmured. The starfield drifted past behind her, turning her silhouette into a soft outline against the endless dark. For a moment Ethan had the strange sense that the station, the lab, the entire orbiting world had narrowed down to the distance between them. Then tomorrow, she said, voice steady but warm, we begin the recalibration together. Ethan nodded, though a quiet thought lingered in the back of his mind. Nothing about this felt like simple calibration. Not anymore. Ethan arrived early the next morning, long before the lab's overhead panels brightened to full daylight mode. The corridor outside was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of power conduits warming for the day. He stood for a moment with his hand on the sensor pad, steadying his breath before stepping inside. The air felt cooler than last night, crisp and clean, carrying none of the lingering warmth of the fragrance. It was almost too normal, as if the room had no memory of what had happened. But Ethan did, and judging by the way Lasara stood beside the recalibration console, hands folded with practiced composure, she did as well. Her markings glowed faintly under the morning cycle lights, subtle but unmistakable, as though her body had not yet decided whether to brighten fully. You are early, she said, her voice calm but warmer than he expected. I needed to make sure everything was stable before we started. Ethan shrugged lightly. I could not sleep much anyway. She studied him a moment, her expression unreadable yet not cold. The scent can cause residual awareness. It fades with time. He rubbed the back of his neck. Awareness. That is a polite word for it. She allowed the faintest hint of amusement to reach her eyes. Politeness is often the safest place to begin. She turned toward the fragrance chamber, now sealed and surrounded by diagnostic holograms flickering in gentle arcs of color. The silver mist from last night had been fully contained, with only a faint trace left behind in the logs. Lasara tapped several commands into the floating interface, each motion smooth and deliberate. The recalibration sequence requires 2 participants, she explained. One whose biology activates the primary sensors, and one who can stabilize the resonance pathway. Ethan nodded. You stabilize. I activate. Correct. She moved to the side panel and retrieved a thin band made of a metallic material he did not recognize. This will monitor your vital patterns. It ensures your reaction stays in a safe range. Ethan slipped the band around his wrist. It tightened automatically, adjusting to his skin temperature. Is it normal for a fragrance to require this much equipment? He asked. She hesitated. Not normal, but necessary. He watched her closely. Because it is royal tier. Yes. Her voice held no bragging, no ceremony, just quiet truth. She opened the chamber, and a thin line of cool air drifted out, carrying no scent at all. Do not worry, she said. This level will not release the full fragrance. Only a minimal trace. Enough for calibration, not enough to overwhelm. I trust you, Ethan said, then realized the weight of his own words. She seemed to hear it too. Her markings brightened softly, a quiet pulse. Then stand just there, she instructed gently, motioning to a marked spot on the floor. Ethan stepped into position. The sensors above the chamber glowed in a slow rhythm, waiting. Lasara adjusted the controls, her movements precise but her breathing slightly shallow, as though she felt the moment as strongly as he did. When the mist rises, she said, inhale naturally. Do not force it. The system will read your response and respond accordingly. And if the system decides it does not like me, it will like you, she said, and there was no doubt in her voice. A soft chime sounded. The chamber released a faint curl of silver vapor, far lighter than last night, barely visible as it swirled upward. Ethan breathed in slowly. The scent touched him gently this time, more like a question than an intrusion. Warm, subtle, familiar now in a way he could not explain. The wristband buzzed once, reading his vitals. The sensors above him brightened in acknowledgement. Resonance confirmed. Lasara murmured, watching the readings with focused attention. The system recognizes you. Ethan let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. The mist faded, and the lights steadied. Was that supposed to happen that quickly? She shook her head. No. For most beings, resonance takes several attempts. But with you, it is immediate. He tried to process that. So what does that mean? She stepped closer, her voice low but steady. It means the fragrance sees you as someone it can trust. And our technology agrees. The meaning settled over him slowly, like warmth spreading through cool air. She held his gaze for a long moment. Ethan, she said softly, this is not simple biology anymore. And he knew she was right. The chamber lights dimmed back to their neutral white, but the air still carried the slightest warmth from the trace of fragrance Ethan had breathed. It was subtle, barely there, yet it lingered inside him like a quiet echo that matched the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. Lasara moved around the calibration console with deliberate calm, but he could tell her focus was divided. Her markings glowed with a deeper silver than earlier, shifting in soft waves along her arms and neck, almost as if responding to the readings instead of the lights. Your resonance stabilized faster than expected, she said at last, her tone thoughtful, analytical, and yet undeniably warm. Faster, even, than those in my lineage. Ethan tried to process that. So I reacted more strongly to a scent crafted for your royal class than actual members of your royal class. She paused, her hands settling against the console, fingers spread in a way that looked like grounding. It is more than reaction. The system read acceptance. Alignment. That is not common. Ethan stood still, sensing the faint pulse from the wristband monitoring his vitals. The device had calmed back to a soft blue glow, signaling equilibrium. You keep saying this is rare. But what does it actually mean for you? Or for me? She lifted her gaze toward him, and for the first time since the previous night, there was no guarded tone, no formal distance. Only clarity. Among my people, fragrance resonance carries meaning beyond science. It is part of identity, part of trust, part of connection. Ethan felt something tighten gently in his chest. And you think this resonance means I am connected to you? She did not speak immediately. Instead, she stepped closer to him, enough that the glow of her markings reflected subtly across the floor near his shoes. It means the fragrance believes you are safe for me, she said quietly, and that I am safe for you. Ethan exhaled, the breath catching slightly as it left him. I did not realize sense could choose things like that. It is not a choice, she said. Not in the conscious sense. But it is a recognition of compatibility. It is instinct. Ethan rubbed his thumb over the wristband, feeling the smooth metal warm under his skin. Does this happen often between your people and humans? She shook her head. Never. Humans do not perceive our sense signatures with enough clarity. They sense only hints, nothing more. She hesitated before continuing. Until you. The room was silent except for the low hum of the ventilation system, and Ethan sensed the shift in the air, the same subtle pull he had felt when the mist first brushed against him. Lasara, he said softly. If this resonance is so rare, then what happens now? She held his gaze steadily, and though her posture remained composed, there was something vulnerable and honest in the way her voice dropped. Now, she said, We determine whether the resonance was a momentary anomaly or a sustained bond. Ethan blinked, startled by the wording. A bond. Not the kind you fear, she clarified gently. A bond of scent. A pattern of trust. It is a connection recognized by my people as meaningful, but not binding unless nurtured. Ethan breathed out slowly, feeling a strange mixture of curiosity and calm settle inside him. And how do we test that? She motioned toward the secondary calibration platform, the one illuminated in soft gold instead of blue. You stand there. I will release a different tier of the fragrance. One meant not for royalty, but for companionship. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Companionship. She nodded once. This scent does not select partners. It selects allies. If the system reacts to you again, then the bond is deeper than I anticipated. He stepped onto the platform without hesitation. All right, he said. Let us see what the scent thinks of me this time. Lasara tapped a command, and a gentle pulse of warm light enveloped the platform. The chamber released a new mist, lighter than the royal tier, with a faint, soothing brightness in the air. Ethan inhaled. The wristband pulsed. The sensors glowed. And Lasara froze, her markings flaring softly, not in alarm, but in unmistakable surprise. It recognized you again, she whispered. Ethan felt the warmth settle through him, like a soft, steady presence. Is that good? She looked at him, awe settling across her features. It means the scent sees you, she said, and it does not wish to let you go. The golden mist thinned slowly, dissolving into the filtered air until only the faintest shimmer remained above the platform. Ethan stood still as the sensors cycled through their final readings, each soft chime echoing in the quiet lab. He expected the warmth in his chest to fade with the mist, but it remained, steady and calm, like a gentle resonance pressed into the center of his awareness. Lasara stepped toward him, her movements careful, almost reverent. The glow of her markings had softened from surprise into something quieter, something thoughtful. This was not supposed to happen, she said, her voice just above a whisper. Ethan managed a small smile. I am starting to notice a pattern with that. She did not smile back, but her eyes softened in a way that carried more meaning than a smile could. The companionship tier was designed to respond only to those with established ties. Shared history. Emotional alignment. Ethan frowned slightly. But I barely know you. She tilted her head, studying him with an expression that felt both analytical and strangely personal. Your people measure knowing through time. Mine measure it through resonance. The fragrance reads what words have not yet explained. Ethan felt the weight of those words settle inside him. Not heavy, but sure. So you are saying this bond is not logical. It is not meant to be logical, she replied. It is meant to be true. The room seemed to quiet even further, the hum of equipment lowering into a soft background murmur as she approached the platform. Ethan stepped down, and she met him halfway, the air between them warmer than the sterile environment should have allowed. She lifted the wristband from his arm, turning it over in her hand. The device pulsed faintly with his last recorded vitals, reflecting a stable resonance pattern. Your readings match those of someone who has formed a secondary scent alignment, she said. This is not temporary. Ethan swallowed gently. What does that mean for you? Lasara's gaze dropped for a moment, as though weighing her words with care. Among my people, scent alignment is a promise. It signifies safety in proximity. It is a bridge between identities. And if maintained, it can become a foundation for deeper trust. Ethan let out a slow breath. And for me, she raised her eyes, meeting his with a steadiness that made the moment feel larger than the room itself. For you, it means your presence has been accepted by something older than our technology. Something instinctual. Something that does not change easily. He absorbed that, standing in the soft glow of the lab's ambient lights. I never asked for this, he said quietly. No, she replied. But you did not reject it. And that matters. The lights dimmed slightly as the station shifted into its midday cycle. Lasara motioned toward the console, as though guiding the moment back to procedure. There is one last calibration, she said. The reassurance tier. It is not as strong as the others. It is used to confirm emotional equilibrium between two beings. If the bond holds through it, then the system will recognize you as fully aligned. Ethan nodded slowly. All right, tell me where to stand. But she hesitated. Not because of uncertainty, but because her voice carried something gentler when she finally spoke. This tier is not tested alone, she said. It requires both participants to stand within the same proximity field. Ethan blinked. So we do this together? Yes. She stepped toward the small circular field drawn into the floor near the chamber. The space was barely wide enough for two people to stand comfortably. Only if you choose to, she added. Ethan looked at the narrow circle, then at her, at the quiet steadiness in her posture, and the soft glow under her skin responding to her heartbeat. I choose to, he said. Her expression did not break, but her markings brightened just slightly, like a soft breath of light. She stepped into the circle, leaving room for him. Ethan joined her. The proximity field activated with a gentle hum, warm and subtle. And in that small circle of shared space, the air shifted around them, waiting to read what neither of them had said aloud yet. The proximity field warmed the floor beneath their feet, a gentle pulse rising through the circle like a slow heartbeat. Ethan stood still, aware of the closeness between him and Lasara, aware of the quiet hum that filled the air around them. It was not loud, not bright, but present enough to feel. Like the room itself was holding its breath. Lasara lifted her hand, hovering her fingers above the activation glyph. When I initiate the reassurance tier, she said softly, the field will adjust to both of our signatures. It will not release a scent the way the others did. Instead, it will read what already exists. Ethan nodded slowly, meaning it will read our emotions. Not just emotions, she replied. It reads intention, alignment of presence, willingness to share space. He looked at her, truly looked, at the calm tension in her shoulders, at the way her markings glowed faintly brighter along the edges of her jawline, catching the soft lab lights. And if it does not read alignment, he asked, then the field will dim, she answered. Quietly, without pain. It will simply release us. Ethan held her gaze. And if it does read alignment? She inhaled gently, the smallest draw of breath. Then the system will recognize us as bonded through scent resonance. It will not assign meaning. It will only acknowledge connection. Ethan felt a steady warmth settle in his chest, something calm and clear. All right, he said. I am ready. Lasara pressed her fingertips to the glyph. The field responded instantly, rising in a soft wave of light that surrounded them from the floor up to waist height. It was warm, not hot, a slow radiating warmth like sunlight filtered through water. The air stirred, carrying no scent this time, only a quiet pressure that settled across Ethan's shoulders and chest. His pulse steadied, matching the rhythm of the field. Lasara closed her eyes briefly as the light reached its full strength around them. Her markings brightened in response, shimmering along her skin like threads of starlight woven into her. The field is reading us, she murmured. Ethan glanced at the console behind her, where the sensors pulsed in slow patterns. Is it doing what it is supposed to do? Yes, she said. It is searching for emotional balance. Ethan breathed out. He let himself feel the moment, the closeness, the trust that had built gradually over the past days. Lasara, he said quietly, I do not know exactly what this means for your people, but I am not afraid of this. Her eyes opened, and for a second he saw something he had not seen before, relief. It softened the stern calm she usually carried, leaving only sincerity. Then the field hears you, she said. Ethan felt the warmth shift slightly, becoming more focused. A soft glow rose around their hands, even though they were not touching. The sensors brightened. Lasara's breath hitched very quietly, barely audible. It is recognizing alignment, she whispered. Ethan tilted his head. Already. It should not be this fast, she replied. But it is. The light intensified briefly, then softened again, settling around them with a steady pulse. The console chimed once, a single clear tone that echoed across the lab. Lasara's eyes widened. The field has accepted you, she said. It has accepted us. Ethan felt the warmth in his chest deepen, not overwhelming, not surprising, just true. So what happens now? She stepped slightly closer, the glow of the proximity field gently outlining her silhouette. Now the system will log this resonance, she said. It will treat us as aligned partners in any future scent-based protocols. Ethan blinked. Partners. In scent, she clarified softly. A connection of trust. Not ownership. Not obligation. Just recognition. The glow around them slowly dimmed, but the feeling it left behind did not fade. It settled instead, quiet and persistent, like a promise neither of them had spoken, but both had agreed to the moment the field accepted them. The proximity field faded in a slow ripple of light, dissolving back into the floor until only the faint warmth under Ethan's feet remained. The lab fell quiet again, the soft hum of the ventilation system returning like a steady exhale the room had been holding in. Ethan stepped out of the circle, but the echo of it stayed with him, a subtle awareness humming beneath his skin. Lasara remained still for a moment longer, as if listening to something only she could hear. When she finally moved, her markings softened in color, shimmering like cooling embers. "The system has confirmed alignment," she said softly. "The logs will reflect that the resonance is mutual." Ethan nodded, though he still felt the weight of the moment settling into him. "I can feel it," he admitted quietly. "Not the scent exactly, just the steadiness." She looked at him with a kind of calm astonishment, as though hearing her own thoughts reflected back. "That is the final tier's purpose. It creates a balanced imprint. It allows two beings to sense each other's presence without scent. It is a marker of trust." Ethan rubbed his thumb over the spot where the wristband had been. The skin there felt warm. "Does this change anything for you?" She hesitated. Her gaze drifted toward the sealed chamber, then back to him. "It changes how the station will respond to us. Scent systems will recognize your signature as compatible with mine. It may grant you access in areas where only my class is permitted." Ethan let out a quiet breath. "So I am accidentally royal adjacent now." The corner of her mouth lifted, not quite a smile, but close. "That is not an incorrect description." A soft chime echoed from the console, drawing her attention. She scanned the data, and her expression shifted into something more serious. "The logs have been flagged by the Oversight Council," she said. "Any interaction with royal tier fragrance requires review." Ethan's shoulders tensed. "Review from who?" "The Council of Lineage," she replied. "My family." Ethan blinked. "Your family?" he repeated, then frowned. "You mean the same family the royal tier scent was originally designed for?" She nodded, her markings pulsing softly. "Yes. They will want to understand why a human resonated with a fragrance that was engineered for my bloodline." Ethan tried to process that. "And do you think they will believe the system malfunctioned?" Lasara held his gaze. "No. They will believe the system chose correctly." The weight of her words settled between them. Calm. Certain. Unavoidable. Ethan drew a slow breath. "So they will want to meet me." "They will require it," she corrected gently. "But their concern will not be hostility. It will be curiosity. And evaluation." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Evaluation of what?" Her voice softened. "Of the bond. Of us." The quiet that followed felt different this time. Not heavy. Not tense. Just full. Ethan looked at the sealed chamber, at the proximity circle, at the faint shimmer still clinging to the lab's air, and then back at her. "Lasara," he said quietly, "are you worried about what they will say?" She lowered her eyes for a moment, and when she looked up again, her expression carried a sincerity he had only glimpsed before. "I am not worried for myself," she said. "I am concerned for you. My family sees scent resonance as truth. As intention. They will assume your alignment with me is deliberate." Ethan stepped a little closer, not enough to close the distance entirely, but enough to let the intention behind his presence be clear. "And is that a problem?" She shook her head slowly. "No, but it means they will expect more than explanation. They will expect commitment." Ethan's breath caught gently in his chest. Not fear. Understanding. He let the silence settle for a moment before speaking. "Lasara, if the field accepted us, then I am not going to pretend it did not happen." She looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression eased, like a quiet tension she had carried alone until now. "Then you will not face them alone," she said. Her markings brightened once, soft as a heartbeat. "We will meet them together." The room dimmed into its late cycle lighting, casting the lab in warm gold as the starfield drifted past the windows. Ethan stood beside her in the calm glow, the resonance between them steady and clear, and for the first time since the fragrance escaped the chamber, he understood the truth she had known all along. The scent had not chosen wrong. It had simply recognized something they had not yet named. And the silence that settled between them spoke louder than any declaration could.